I think the intro probably should have started with Ya Momz House now has an Ops Order People waiver. Stay tuned for this episode. Welcome to Waiver Watch episode 30 on June 7th, 2020. We are 107 Waivers, and each week we bring to you some of the most interesting waivers approved by the FAA in the weeks prior. And I always take a breath there. As you notice, my background is the same, so I've been in the same place for at least 2 weeks right now. We might switch it up. In fact, we're probably going to switch it up next weekend. Check back to see where the location is.
Yeah.
Jakey, as always, we have a little bit of a different light color in the background today. I see you're going with the white. That's very nice for the dark clouds that are today here in Grand Forks.
It is dark. Yeah. It's going to be some stormy weather here.
That's right. So let's talk about this week's jammed pack waivers. Maybe not so much, but episode 30, the agenda, weekly waiver totals, 107.3.1 interpretation, and Ya Momz House Inc. Believe it or not, this
is
will be
not a
interesting.
Your Mama joke.
This is not Your Mama joke, and they happen to get a 107.3.9 at Ya Momz House.
That's right. Parachutes.
Oh, you know what? I think the intro probably should have started with Ya Momz House now has an Ops Order People waiver. Stay tuned for this episode.
Your mom's house got a parachute.
Oh my God! Here comes. I feel like we're in high school again.
Pop and shoots at your mom's house.
Oh, maybe we'll take that one out.
All jokes aside.
Yeah. All right. So, as always, Jakey, hit us with the weekly waiver totals.
All right. So, 29 waivers. That's the same as last week if you're paying attention. Or if you weren't, go watch that episode. So we had 29 total. So 27 daylight operations waivers, 1 operations over human beings, 2 Yo Mom's House, and 1 high altitude. So not quite the variety we had last week, but still good. Numbers are starting to climb up a little bit, and it was kind of Texas and New York that took the cake home this week. So it's always interesting to see the states just kind of randomly, get waivers. It's odd.
Yeah. So the tangent here, right? We really dig deep, and we are barely scratching the surface. Waiver Watch, we scratch the surface. We have so much more back-end data about waivers. And one of the things I want to just point out is like Texas, right? And this map is just orange. And the 3 states that are constantly getting the most waivers are California, Texas, and Florida. These are some of the things that we just know because of the data that we hold. We are just aggregating data all the time. We're looking for really big insights into the industry. So I want to say, if you're a corporation out there and you're watching, if you're not paying attention to California, Texas, and Florida, maybe turn some, sites down there, because maybe it's a small indication when 107 waivers are being granted to those states, what is actually happening there? What's the appetite in these cities? Just wanted to throw that out there, right? Because there's more to be gleaned out of this map than just the fact that there was 29 waivers. What else can we learn from it, right?
Yeah.
So, Montana, not a good place this month. This week,
or ever.
Or ever, yep. So,
yeah.
Anyways, why don't you did a little fun fact about North Dakota. What you want to talk about North Dakota and that huge spike that you realized in your data?
Right. So it's not always just about quantity. Obviously, population and just number of people in an area have something to do with it. So normalizing things a little bit, we actually figured out that North Dakota is like the advanced ops, 107, I'd say, state of the United States. Like way more waivers per person than any other state. So kind of a little interesting fun fact there.
And a lot of it probably has to do with the support from the senator, the support from UND Aerospace. You have RISE here. You also have Northern Plains UAS Test Site. A lot of Air Force Base here with unmanned aircraft. There's a lot of things happening here in that state in North Dakota.
Yeah.
So, and guess what? That's where we're both sitting right now. So maybe there's a reason, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent.
Always, like you said, we've got a lot going on behind the scenes, right?
Right. There may be a little bit more behind this chart than we share. So
Yeah.
So anyways, let's get into it. So this week, Jakey threw a post out on one of the Facebook groups that we're part of, and it was a question. I'll let you read the question or state the question, but it was basically a question based around 107.31. So why don't you fill us in with the question that you asked for a poll?
I'm gonna take you one step back further because here at 107 Waivers, we are not about shaming or getting after people. But sometimes, we'll throw some names out there just for discussion's sake, right? So earlier this week, Drone Up, they released a report about their Operation Last Mile, right? It's this COVID drone delivery test that they did in April. And I'm reading through this, and it kind of starts like dawn on me that they are interpreting 107.31 in a pretty liberal way. Maybe not how we interpret it. Specifically, they were doing some tests where they would fly behind a building, descend down to drop a package off, and they were using a VO on the other side of the building to satisfy the kind of the see and avoid requirement for the pilot. So like, okay. So that spurred the post, right? So the question was, can a remote pilot use a downrange VO, so not co-located, kind of out there along the flight path or whatever? Can they use that person to comply with the requirements of 107.31 if the pilot can no longer see the UAS? This got things rolling.
It did.
So what was maybe the results or what some of the comments in there? Yeah.
So Jakey, like you said, this got the conversation rolling. You worded it perfectly to invite people to inject their opinions and also vote. So we had a lot of people vote. Do you have the total?
A total of like 185.
185 votes. Okay, so like a fairly good sample size. And the group that we were in is like 16,000 people. So a pretty good sampling. It's definitely not 1,000 people, but it wasn't 10. So to break it down, the results to the answers. So can a remote pilot use a downrange visual observer to comply with the requirements of 107.31 if the RPIC can no longer see the unmanned aircraft? 59% of those polled correctly or said no. They were polled and they answered correctly. However, there's this large portion of remaining people that are still unsure. And this group that we're in, I would say that they're respectable, knowledgeable pilots in this group. Operators, toy pilots, I think is that what we're calling it?
Toy pilots. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the toy pilots in this group are very knowledgeable, and it's a very good community. It's moderated very well, and the conversations are always very helpful. So it's very interesting that a group that is plugged in so well into the community has this much, variance in what they believe is true or the correct way to interpret it. So everyone else out there that's not part of this group, that's a fringe 107 operator, good luck, because they're going to say, yeah, it's totally fine, the way that they read it. So maybe, I'll kind of stop right there, Jake, and let you have your point here to transition to the next portion, right? Yeah. Which is really the meat of it.
Yeah, I suppose how we worded this is a little weird. It kind of dawned on me, but really the short story is 40% interpreted incorrectly. 59% interpreted it correctly, 41% incorrectly. And there actually is a correct answer. So I'll say that this is not a case where both are correct or anything like that. There actually is a correct answer here. There's some caveats, some nuances, and we'll talk about those, but there's a correct answer. So what is the correct answer? The correct answer is the pilot in command at all times must see the unmanned aircraft during the flight. That's really it. There is a small caveat where the aircraft can be operated like behind an obstacle for a brief moment. This brief moment is not defined. and it has to be out of operational necessity, but they can do that briefly. But otherwise, they have to see it the whole time. So,
Right. So let's pause right there.
yeah.
So what is a brief moment, right? Because Kevin Morris, the FAA safety team, he's in this group as well. He's commenting back and forth a little bit. And what is a brief moment? That is the hardest part. So he had said something, and I'm not quoting directly, but summarized, like the FAA gives you some room for interpretation. They allow you to make a decision. Mm-hmm. And I think the comment that I said is that this is where good aeronautical decision-making comes in, because as long as you are making a good safety case on why you did what you did, when the FAA comes up to ramp check you and they see what you're doing, if you can say with a straight face why you did what you did, chances are you're probably going to be good, because this is the part of the aeronautical decision-making. So what is a brief moment? Like, I'm looking outside, I see a couple trees in North Dakota. There are very few here that are in town. But let's say I was mapping, right? And I pass through one tree that's in this field and it disappears, right? But the tree in my vision is maybe like 2 degrees, right? Mm-hmm. The drone flies through. I know that I'm on an automated mission. In about 2 seconds, it'll come out on the other side of the tree. Mm-hmm. If I don't see it in 2 seconds, I'm going to have to do something. Take manual control, fly it up, fly backwards, whatever, right? That is probably why there's this brief moment, right? And that is also why they don't define it specifically, because if they said you can be behind an object for 20 seconds, I could fly behind something for 20 seconds and it wouldn't be safe. But there's other times where I could be hovering behind a tree and I take 2 steps to the left and I can see the drone, but I could be there for 20 seconds and still be safe. This is just hypothetical, but anyways, so just wanted to pause there. So keep going with the nuances further, right?
Yeah. So I think first, it's worth describing a little bit why this is actually hard to interpret. So if you read 107.31, the first part, alpha, it says, with vision that is unaided, the remote pilot and command, the VO, if you use one, and the person manipulating the flight control. So kind of your whole flight crew, right, must see the aircraft throughout the entire flight. And the key word there is and. It's the remote pilot, the VO, and the person manipulating. It's not like one or the other. So pretty clear at that point. But what were you going to say?
I was going to say the remote pilot in command and the person manipulating the flight controls. Can you help me out with that?
Right. So technically a pilot in command. So, these are the people who have the certificate, they're trained, all that. You can actually let an uncertificated person fly, be on the sticks, but the pilot has to be sort of like over the shoulder, or they're still in charge. They have to be able to take control or whatever, help them out. So there's some cases for that. But
this is kind of how a student pilot flies an airplane without an official license, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You have your instructor sitting right next to you. There's 2 yokes.
Yeah.
Things get hairy.
Reach over, hit the return to home button.
Right. A little bit different, right? But
yeah,
probably a little bit less risk as well.
Yeah.
So 2 people aren't sitting in the drone.
Yep.
Training.
So your flight crew, those critical people have to see the aircraft. Mm-hmm. So then so that's pretty clear. Everybody has to see it. But then when you go to B, the second part of 107.31, it seems to contradict A. So it says throughout the entire flight, the part, the ability described in A, so this whole thing of seeing it throughout the entire flight and all that, can be exercised by either the remote pilot in command or the manipulator or the VO. So the first part says all 3 of these and must see it. And then the second part says or the pilot in command or the VO can see it. So I think that's like really the heart of it. People are going, well, Bravo says I can. Because it like modifies A, and there are all these comments that we were having in this post, right? So
right.
That's the difficult thing here. So we can kind of see where things get off track a little bit. But go ahead.
You're good there. Yeah, you have to remember who are the Part 107 operators that are trying to interpret this regulation, right? I know you have to write the words in such a way, for your regulations and all that to be at a certain level. But at the end of the day, like also people need to be able to interpret these to follow these regs. And if they're too complicated and they're too convoluted with and or statements, the reading levels of these regs need to drop. They can't be focused on one word. If you miss reading that one word, which is at the end of a sentence, there's a colon, it's like colon or, and then the next line. It's like, well, this is it's inviting to say, hey, make a mistake here interpreting this, because, we didn't go to high school and learn how to interpret regs. And when, you have all the 16-year-olds and even adults, that are going to get their 107, they didn't take classes in interpreting federal regs to go do something, to make a side hobby, right? When you're doing other types of small businesses, you're not operating off of like 107 regs, and it might be a little bit simpler, and you have a lot of the resources. Be out here, but
anyways. So you hit on it right there. So I think the FAA knows this. Okay, regulations are a little bit hard to read. So there is actually additional context to this. There's more sources of information that you can go, and they do try and more, plain language explain maybe the context of the regulations. The 107 preamble is a good example of that. When they made the rule, they actually wrote up a huge document on essentially like all their thoughts when they were making this, what people said and commented, how they responded to those comments, like what they really meant, and this and that. So there is context here, but it's not, if you just go take your 107 written test, like you may never find these things. So you do have to kind of take the extra step to go dig a little bit.
So I was going to say here, okay, right? Because we just below in our post here, right? We're getting to it. This moment you just mentioned. So the data is there. The information is there, right? Why are people interpreting this incorrectly? It's because when I go and read B and I see the or, RPIC or VO, I might not know about this advisory circular that we're going to cover, right? So why not just like, where's the Cliff Notes? Where's, all the books that was like iPhone for Dummies, Apple for Dummies,
quick
those
start
books?
guide.
Like,
yeah.
Is that the book that we should be writing?
107.
FAA. 107 regs for dummies, and and then it shows you the advisory circular, and you go line by line. Like, oh my gosh, don't take our idea the whole world, but maybe we were just onto something there. Anyway, so let's read this advisory circular. Jakey, take it away, because this is what really helps you not guess. Right. This is it.
So you'll have to go to our blog post for those of you watching and listening, because we copied a paragraph straight out of this advisory circular 107-2, section 5.7. It basically discusses visual line of sight operations, and it essentially goes over this exact kind of interpretation issue that we're seeing. So we highlighted 4 sentences out of this. It's pretty long. We're not going to read it, but we highlighted 4 sentences that I think kind of hit why there actually is a correct answer to this. So the Cliff Notes is, this AC says, the first sentence, the remote pilot in command and person manipulating the controls must be able to see the small UA at all times. So, okay, you could stop there. It's like end of story, but we keep going a little bit again, because it describes this losing sight for a little bit. So it does say, however, the person maintaining VLOS may have brief moments in which he or she is not looking directly at or cannot see the small UA, but still retains the capability to see the UA or quickly maneuver it back to visual line of sight. So this really starts to get into why Bravo exists. Kevin Morris kind of summarized it really well, I think. So he said, think of it this way. A means that everybody must have the ability to see the US. Bravo just describes who is actually doing it at like a given moment. So a pilot, you're looking at DJI Go app, you're flying around, you're not actually like watching it, but your VO could be standing right next to you watching it. But if something goes down, emergency, or you can look up, oh, there it is, and you can react. And really that's the key when we talked about aeronautical decision making, right? Why does the FAA want to make sure the pilot can see it at all times? Because if something happens, the absolute quickest way to have a reaction and like essentially mitigate the risk is for you to look up. If you had to have your visual observer like explaining to you what's happening, oh, there's a aircraft coming from this direction and blah, 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 and you can't see that, like there's delays, right? You may not react properly. What if GPS gets lost and you have to take manual control? So that's really where the heart of it is. You have to be able to see it because that is the quickest way to minimize, risk. So any follow-up to that, Brent? I mean, that's...
It always goes deeper. When you're interpreting the regs, you have to go farther than just reading the regs explicitly. Go reach out for the other resources that they've put out, the FAA's put out, and then dig in there, right? Because you don't want to have loose interpretations on the regs if you're incorrect, because it can put you in situations where you're acting your intent is to comply with the regs, but you're unintentionally violating the regs, which I think happens actually a lot, is that a lot of commercial operators don't intend to break the law, but because they don't understand the regs as well as they should, they are breaking the law. Because, how many times have you walked up to somebody jakey and they're doing something and they're like, no, we're good. Like, here, see?
Yeah.
And then you're like, actually, you broke 2 laws.
Yeah.
Were you unsafe? No. But you did break 2 laws. You
Yeah.
know, like, hey, the speed limit's 55. You're going 60. There's no cars around. We're in North Dakota, right? You're probably okay. The road wasn't wet. You're on paved road, yada, 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 right? That's like the types of violations that are happening. They're not big deals, but you're still breaking the law. Speed limit's 55. You're going 60. Same thing here. So
yeah, it's just like 107.39, right? We can maybe hit this next time. Oh, you can't fly directly over somebody, but right? There's always another level. So we won't get into that, but that's
right.
These are difficult. So yeah, I think so. Back to like the original context, right? So like, if you're a drone up, you operated illegally, and we'll just say it on live air. But did they really mean to? No, I don't. Like you said, Brian, I don't think so. They just interpreted things a little incorrectly. So maybe they should go back and adjust their report a little bit. But
right. Well, I mean, this is the thing too. Like, there's another big company out there too that has some training videos out, and they're questionable, right? Whether or not it's ops over people or moving vehicles or yada, yada, yada. But they are industry leaders, right? People look to them for expertise and knowledge. When you're in that certain position, you have a lot of funding and you're well known, you influence what other people think because they trust you. And if you're not tight on your messaging, you're going to put the wrong ideas out and people are just going to believe it because people don't do their own research. And, at the end of the day, that's kind of where it sits, I think. It's just, we have to be very careful. The people that are influencers in the industry need to make sure that they're very careful on what they say, because people will take their word for fact if they misspeak, even unintentionally. So,
and I think the only last blurb here is like, okay, so there are companies doing this using like VO as daisy chain. We talk about this all the time. So it's doable. You just have to get a waiver. So 107.31 can be waived. Many companies are waiving it for this exact reason, so they can have a VO downrange and extend the flight distances and all that. And often you have to justify it, like training, experience. Maybe there's technical mitigation, so it can be done safely. You just have to get a waiver and prove to the FAA that. So just wanted to throw that out there as kind of the last bit.
Right. Yeah. So let's wrap up on that was a very serious digestion of 107.31. I think this is the perfect way to close out our episode with a little bit of lightheartedness with someone has gotten a 107.39 operations over people at Ya Momz House.
Incorporated.
Ya Momz House. And it's literally spelled YAMOMZ House, Inc. Ya Momz House, Inc.
Yeah.
And when we saw this, we were laughing. So this is like literally on the FAA waiver table. Ya Momz House, Inc. has a 107.39. Yeah. And from first glance, we're like, oh my God, who is trolling the waiver table with putting some ridiculous company name out there, right?
Yeah.
And like, right, we're sending text messages. We're like, oh my God, this is how the FAA is going to crack down that waiver table, and they're only going to show waiver numbers. and they won't say responsible persons or anything else. You have to click in there and all that stuff. Because, yeah, anyway, so we thought it was a troll at first, but to our surprise, after doing a little bit of background digging, right, which there's always more to the story, right?
That's right.
So instantly we're like, oh, someone is trolling the FAA. What is surprising about Ya Momz House Inc.?
Yeah, no, they're like a very reputable company in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Emmy award-winning digital multimedia agency. So, I mean, yeah, this is totally legit. This company is very professional. You know, been in the business, winning awards, all that. So it's like, oh heck yeah, this is totally legit. So yeah, I'm sure the FAA double taked as well when they were going through this, but. Yeah, don't jump to conclusions, right? That's always right. Always our message. So, so yeah,
you have
awesome that they're adding a pair zero system to their toolbox. So great.
So somebody being safe, somebody taking the extra step and saying, hey, you know what? Adding a parachute to my operation, increases my capability, also decreases some risk, right? Decreasing kinetic energy, saving equipment, it's a good thing. So yeah, kind of a fun one to wrap up with this week's Waiver Watch episode 30. Congratulations. You threw us for a loop, Ya Momz House, by having an interesting name, right? And I'm sure they get more business because of that.
Yeah.
Like, people are like, what's your company name? Ya Momz House? Like, are you sure?
I know.
Yeah, it is.
Jack Orman, if you're out there, we'd love to learn more about that name.
Anyways, thank you for tuning in for this week's Waiver Watch episode 30. Again, catch us next week. We'll throw episode 31 out there.
And
there might be
some
things every week. Sunday. We don't have football or baseball yet, so just watch Waiver Watch, right?
It's pretty close. Pretty close.
Yeah, I would say baseball or Waiver Watch. Waiver Watch all day, every day. So, all right. Well, and until next time, right? Take care.
Fly safe.